Hello teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm not wearing my usual wig. It is currently wet. We had a hot couple of weeks. The humidity hasn't quite let go and I decided just to rinse it out and give it a refresh. So waiting for that to dry, I'm going to be wearing this. It's going to be falling into my face a little because I wear quite cheap wigs and the preset shape can be a little stubborn until you've worn them in, which I haven't with this one. So there we go. Hello there. This week has been terrible. I gave you a react a few days ago. Recap, I think it was a recap. So I got a Lust for Life Iggy Pop something. I had notes on most of it. And then Thursday happened and God, yesterday for me was awful. So I didn't finish it. I was done. I was done with her. I was done with school. I was done with life. I was like, I did nothing yesterday. So, no, I played Disney Dreamlight Valley and I refused to acknowledge any other existence. That is what I did yesterday. And so I got up and I was like, okay, great. I'll finish this one off. I'll see what new stuff she's got. And she had 2 pre-recorded and she had gone live. Like she was actually live when I went to do this morning. And I was like, oh God. So I listened to her other live. We're going to go over both of them today. I Got a Lust for Life and what was the other one called? Oh, McBeezin Bangkok. She's back. We'll talk about it. So I've got recaps of that right now. Sorry, my voice is still gone. And I haven't actually watched the pre-recorded yet. So if I end up doing a react to those, I'll upload it probably tomorrow if I do it. Because with her already being live, I wanted to check that live before I recorded this one. So the timeline's all messed up. Sorry about that. I'm behind, it's a fact. So let's take a look at these. We'll start with her one from the other day, I Got a Lust for Life. She's up, she's editing. They're supposed to be going on public transport and she says this in the sense of, oh, the horror. Like, really? She's been over 2 weeks on the vacation. Now, when I was writing these notes, I was wondering about how long she was going to be there. I mentioned it in my last react. She does talk a little bit more about it in the next live. She's hyping up the video she's making. She talks briefly about like earning money on YouTube and she doesn't understand why people are so interested in her finances. And the answer is because they don't really make sense. And I think Foodie does know this, but she likes to point out with the kind of eye rolling how ridiculous is that she knows what she's presenting and she knows when it doesn't make sense and it just leaves space for speculation. And that's why it's just speculation. It's mostly all in good fun, but that's why people ask because it doesn't make sense. She's been talking for a couple of days now about therapy. I don't know if it's because somebody in the chat is pushing it or if it's something that's been on her mind recently. The chat was in and out on this live stream because when I saw it, the chat wasn't loaded yet and then I had a bit where it was frozen and I don't know. So I've got some of the chat and some not. She says that she's spoken to therapists but doesn't like therapy and she prefers this avenue. She can't get the idea that therapists don't care about her out of her head and she doesn't like the questions they ask, which we've talked about before. Therapy makes her uncomfortable and she doesn't like that at all. And she gives up. And this has been true, but I do think she's overstating that she's tried therapy because yes, she's gone to see and make initial appointments, but I don't think she's ever built a relationship with a therapist at all. I don't think she's ever had that point where she's had repeated visits because the building up of trust in those relationships is vital to their success. And I don't think she gives it enough time to try that. And not everybody is a good fit. It definitely does take time. And we talk about comfort and discomfort. You have to be able to get to a point in your relationship with your therapist where you're able to talk about uncomfortable things. And Foodie just never gets there. She doesn't engage with the idea that therapy is supposed to be uncomfortable in a useful way. Somebody asked her, do you think you might have to cut the trip short because you had to pay a pretty penny for the ER? And she says, it wasn't break the bank expensive, but it was a chunk of change. But then she talks about changing the trip and she's like, oh, we'd have to do all these things. We'd have to change the flights. We'd have to change. I don't even know what we'd have to change. Salah would have to do it. And makes a bit of not a massive deal about it, but lists quite a few reasons why it would be bad. And that just kind of hit me a bit wrong. Not that she's wrong in the sense that, yes, you'd have to rearrange all these things, But the way she went to the point of, look, it would be really hard, seemed unnecessary. And I think it might be my brain focusing on it a little bit too much because of what I think about some of the later stuff. So we will talk about that, but it feels a bit more purposeful in the way that when she last had to change her tourist visa, she disappeared for a few days, and people, including myself, were like, hey, I think maybe she's done a visa run. And then the next time we had a live from her, she made a point of being in front of the curtain and found a reason to turn it and kind of twitch it so that you could see that was outside and that it wasn't a background. And there was nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's something she doesn't do. And it was proving, look where I am, look that I'm live, look that I'm actually in Kuwait. Whereas if it weren't an issue, she wouldn't have needed to prove it, because of course she'd be in Kuwait. So it kind of struck me like that, and I'm sure I'm overthinking it, but hey, it's me. She rather bizarrely, given her history, decides to give some budgeting advice. One trick she can tell us is don't pay for everything all at once. At first I was a little bit confused. I thought she meant like, put it on a credit card and break it up, which is about the level of financial advice I would expect. I break up my stuff by putting it into a sinking fund and then accessing the fund. It sounds from how she's talking that like she took a few months YouTube checks and was like, okay, this month I'm paying for the hotel, this month I'm paying for the flights, which is still much better habits than she's had historically of just, well, you know, spend it and then if we can't pay it back, oh well, I guess it's another bankruptcy. So it shows a little bit of improvement in that way, and she seems less pressured by having all the outgoings in 1 month, because we know she doesn't balance her finances well. So while the advice is a little bit basic, it is an improvement, so there we go. My voice is so squeaky today, I'm so sorry. I had a strepsil before I started, I promise. We go back to the topic of the ER, and she doesn't want to give an exact number, but she was like a couple of thousand or so Canadian, and oh my God, where did she go? I don't think it usually costs that much in Thailand. Like, Thailand is not that expensive. I actually went for my surgery in Thailand after when I was having like skin removal and stuff. So I think she got screwed over with the price. Now I'm guessing she went to one of the big international hospitals, which does cost a little bit more. But I'm sorry, she had a boil lance and she didn't even have medication from the sound of it. She said it wasn't infected. So yes, technically it's a surgical procedure, but I think she got taken for a ride there. Now she does say, look, I don't convert well, I might have the numbers wrong, I'll have to check it, to be completely fair to her. But someone came back with like 1,500 Canadian or something like that, and she was like, yeah, that sounds about right. She said at one point they were calling around for costs though. This was quite funny when she talks about not being able to convert well. She claimed she spent about 2,000, and then she was like, we were calling around and one of the hospitals said 40,000 baht, which is about 1,500 Canadian, and we were like, no thank you. You paid more than that, dear. But like, that's what caused her to be like, oh, I might be converting that wrong. So she may have realized, to be fair. She says she misses Canadian life a little and she should let loose a little bit more. And she also says that Thailand wasn't as cheap as they were thinking, and she spends more here than in Kuwait. I think here she means specifically on food. I know she's been in Bangkok, which is a lot more touristy, and the areas she's been in Bangkok, it might just be she's choosing more expensive options, but you can definitely live cheaply there. She starts complaining again that she doesn't like that kind of support. I think we're back on the therapy question, but because I can't see the chat at this point, it's a little difficult. And then the conversation switches back to kind of the money, the hotel, the food. She says the hotel doesn't have free breakfast, but next time it was something she would probably do. I agree. I take advantage of a hotel breakfast where I can, because usually I just eat that on kind of the later end, and then I don't bother with lunch, and then I have dinner. So if you have a hotel with a breakfast, you take advantage of that, friends. In terms of other countries, she says they've got no plans to go anywhere else right now. Somebody is being really insistent on the whole mental health thing in chat. She starts justifying again, saying she does a lot of self-help reading. Bitch, where? I'm sorry, no. If she were, one, it wouldn't be full reading. It would be a paragraph on a website or the back of a book. And two, she'd be lecturing us on it because she wouldn't be able to help herself. There's a couple of comments about her having kids. She said she doesn't know what the future holds, but it's something they discussed behind the scenes before marriage. I don't think Chantal wants kids at all. And that's not a judgment in any way, but I imagine she's finding it hard to let go of the idea, even though I don't really think she wants to, just because it is culturally important in the part of the world she's in, and probably to Salah. And the fact is, Foodie isn't the most secure person, and she's probably worried about how that's going to impact in the future. And even if she were more secure, it's actually quite a serious issue between partners, and it is something they should consider. And it might have an effect on their future, because remember, it seems to have with Bibi. Bibi wanted kids and she couldn't have them, and they broke up. So there's a reason that this would be a difficult conversation for her, I think. Oh, I went back and I couldn't see what she was talking about, but she says something about having a subscription she didn't cancel. Like, I looked for what it was, and I don't get why she finds it so hard to cancel stuff. Like, what are you doing? You can just usually do it online, and she must have far less transactions running through her home account right now. Most of the stuff they do in Kuwait goes through Salah's card. We know that she transfers money over, but she either works in cash or gives it to him and he pays because he's an actual resident and can get a bank account. But because of that, she must have far less running through her account in Canada now than she used to, like all the takeout and stuff she used to have, or the Amazon she used to buy. So there's no reason not to go into your account now and be like, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe. I don't need it. Why are you wasting money? I realize I do harp on about this, but I feel quite strongly about like financial awareness and financial literacy, and it's not a hard thing to do, but you should always be aware of what's happening with your money. She wants snacks, but she doesn't want to go to the 7-Eleven herself, but she keeps thinking about it, and then she says, you know what, she might go, she might make a video, buy a whole basket of her favorites, and then she kind of belatedly adds to share because she remembers what she's saying. I don't believe her, but it's fine, I don't need to. She's not going to say directly when they're going back, but they're there for a little while longer. We'll talk about that in the next one. She said she hasn't partied this trip. She thinks she didn't really enjoy it when she used to in Canada, but she was just trying to escape, which is something we discussed around that time, just anything that wasn't her life, basically. And that she feels old, and God, me too. This is definitely, we're of a similar age, Chantal and I. I'm just under a year older than her. And God, you feel it some days. No. And I imagine being in somewhere like Thailand, where a lot of people go to party, like, you feel old. She complains a little bit about the stages of editing the video. She says she's not good at choosing music, but she has a limited library. This was really minor, but with all the wasted subscriptions she actually has, you'd think she'd have one for like copyright-free background music or something, you know? Or not copyright-free, she'd be buying a license to use the music. Like Epidemic Sound, some kind of service like that. I don't know what the others are called. Like, it's your literal job. Use a subscription for something useful. Oh, this was quite funny. She completely negated the point of hiding messages by reading a negative comment that was hidden out loud. And then that allowed her to move on to complain about anyone who dares to react to her while being a mother. Rather hilariously, she says she can't watch most reactors because she likes listening to intelligent thoughts. And that's why she deletes her lives when she loses her temper, because she realized that it makes her sound stupid and she's ashamed. I was interested that she admitted that, even, because usually she doesn't get quite to that point. This is the point I gave up on recapping this, and then I went to school, it was terrible. I've come back the next day, my chat's working now, and I can see this person, Zinga, I don't know if I pronounce the N, I'm presuming not, says, do you have anyone in your life to go to for support and wisdom? Which seems to trigger Foodie a little bit. Not in a rage kind of way, but in a kind of you hit a nerve sort of a way. She said she doesn't like to talk about her problems, and then she said she doesn't like to dwell on her problems. And I found the wording of that quite interesting, because I think it was more revealing than she necessarily intended. She loves talking about her problems online because it gives her an outlet, and she does it frequently. But she sees a therapist helping her, moving her to work through it, and the different perspectives that a therapist might force her to, I say force, but might present to her, and the change in thinking it might give her as dwelling, because that would be harder. But actually, the reality is the opposite is usually true. If you're willing to do the work of a therapist, you're less likely to dwell on them, because they're no longer, the thoughts, I mean, they're no longer controlling you. You're not living the same cycle because you're finding better ways to deal with it. And she lives cycle after cycle after cycle. She won't change, she'll never change, but she'll never try to change either, which just means she is going to dwell on her problems probably forever, because she's just going to remain stuck in them. So she feels very fortunate to be with Salah, and when she thinks about the situation she used to be in, she says she thinks she's pretty much healed, but she almost flashes back and gets bad anxiety, which I don't know about you, but that sounds almost fully healed to me. Like, behold the power of the internet audience and their therapeutic skills. She says there's a costume shop back home. I'm assuming she means Kuwait here, not Canada, and that she might do some time warps and go back to the things she used to enjoy on channel. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but time warps were one kind of content that I actually enjoyed from her. And at least when they were like time eras and not movies, because I didn't really like the movie-based ones. But it would be nice to see her have some kind of purpose to her content again. I realize she is travel vlogging right now, but she did seem to enjoy the time walks, and I think it affected her attitude, which was good. There's a bit more complaining about reaction channels, and then some nothing chat, you know, when she just goes back and forth and there's no real talking point. Someone asked if Salah has gotten the chance to visit the Western world. She starts talking about a few differences. I think some in Thailand and some in general, like not having the water hoses in the bathroom and Burger King not being halal. And as part of this conversation, she mentions taxes, so I'm assuming she's comparing Canada and Kuwait now here. She says that people that live there, I'm assuming Kuwait, take it for granted, and that's, I'm guessing, the tax-free status, and then interrupts herself to say that she finds people in Kuwait are also very frugal-minded. And that makes sense, as like in Islam, it's really heavily discouraged to take on debt. Now, there's an understanding that things like mortgages can be necessary to life, and there are Islamic banks that will structure those kind of loans and how you take it on, so that the responsibility you take on can be as close to the religious practice as possible. But basically the idea of it is, don't take on any unnecessary debt and clear it as fast as you can. Now, she does go into this a little bit more later. She doesn't seem to have much more information, but neither do I, so who the hell am I? But it's the idea basically of people profiting from earning interest on it that seems to be the problem. Foodie does say that it's sometimes a point of contention between her and Salah, which we've seen a little of, and not so much contention, but her impulse has always been throw some money at it and you'll either get it or you'll be in control of it and it won't matter. And Salah doesn't seem to be that way. He hasn't been in a situation where he's had that much money he could just throw it away and not think. And ultimately, for everything we say about Salah, I would say that's one of the most positive influences he's had on her. And I know I don't often have good things to say about Salah, so I do believe it. She talks about how the tax rate in Canada is crazy. Remember, at this point, she's supposed to be on a payment plan for her old back taxes. And it's still crazy to me that she refuses to believe that she has to pay taxes in Canada. I think she realizes that no, it doesn't matter that she lives in Kuwait. She's still a Canadian citizen who earns money in Canada and therefore has to pay taxes. As with so many things in her life, it's one of those bury your head in the sand situations where if I don't look into it, then I don't have that realization and it doesn't exist. And I think the idea of actually figuring out what she owes and having to be disciplined enough to put money aside for it just isn't something she's willing to deal with. And she's not going to do what she doesn't want to do when she's out of reach of Canada for the moment. And God forbid when she go back, there be consequences, which is probably why she's not planning on going back. But we'll see how it shakes out, because her situation right now, although people do kind of abuse the tourist system in a lot of places, it can't last forever. But I do think they're perhaps working on that right now, and we'll talk about that in the second live. But for the moment, at least, she has no plans to go back to Canada right now. Someone asked if they're going to buy a home. She says they can't because one of them is not Kuwaiti. Like, you have to have a Kuwaiti owner. She also refers to Salah's business here. She acknowledges that you need a Kuwaiti to be in business, but that doesn't mean you don't have an important role in the company. And that's true. And I don't think anyone argued that. The only point people were making is that, technically speaking, calling it his business when it has to be by law 51% owned by somebody who's Kuwaiti is incorrect. Now, she dismisses it as not important, and it actually isn't. So it's not a big deal. It's just factually, technically true. She's getting a bit lost in the circular conversation of the drama again, but she does mention that she did go to a clinic for a checkup on the boil. She says they booked a longer trip this time. She doesn't think she'll do one this long ever again. And current to the live, it's been over 2 weeks. It's time to sign off. The live ends. Now, if she were leaving soon, I could understand, okay, we did Bangkok, then we did Pattaya, and now we're going back to the airport. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So she turns on the camera, and man, her filter is working really hard. It's not working successfully, but it's working really hard. She's got the shaper on, but her face looks kind of mottled under there. And if the filter can't keep up with that, it must be pretty bad in real life. She does mention that her skin is pretty bad right now, so she can clearly see it too. She says she's really tired today, and they took a small break between the things they do, like a day, a half a day. They might go out later perhaps. But you can see in her vlogs when it's like, oh, they did that, she's wearing the same clothes now, she's doing this. Usually they're on the way to something, and then she makes 2 or 3 vlogs out of it. She shows her picture of them in the floating market. She laughs and says she can't tell if she's the wife, the sister, the aunt, but she does love that they got to go there before it all burned down. She says they're keeping it kind of secret about when they come back. And this exchange was a case of, why are you emphasizing this? It just makes it feel suspicious. We have a set date, we're coming and going, you guys will see, because you need a return when you come into the country. When I was working in Indonesia, I went with one of my Filipino co-workers because we had to leave the country and come back on the work visa, because we came in on one and then got the paperwork set up, and then we had to go out and re-enter. And the school sent us to, I want to say it was Singapore. And we had to prove we had a visit. And I got there and they were like, why are you here? And I just told them, and we went through, no problem. And then my Filipino co-worker behind me, they made her like unpack her bag, prove that she was going back. They really did not trust her. But it's very usual that you have to prove that you're not coming in permanently with a return ticket. But like I say, it's a bit of an odd thing for her to point out. There's no need for it, unless it's on her mind because she wants it as proof. Now, that being said, I do see the sense in people not knowing where she is in real time, because people tend to interfere with her in real time. When I went to Greece, I never posted real-time shots on my social media because I don't want people following me around. I'm not saying anyone would, I'm not that important, but why give anyone the opportunity? Keep yourself safe. And Foodie's audience is like 95% trolls, so yeah. But in my experience, very non-committal phrases like, we have set tickets booked. So she's not technically lying if they don't fly on the day of the set tickets, but they have them physically there. Makes me think she's hiding something. Now, in terms of what she's hiding, there was a rumor going around, and I only know about this because someone commented, they're like, can you comment on this? And I was like, this is the first I've heard of it. But saying that they don't know when they're going back really because they're processing paperwork. And it's possible. As I said before, getting married in Thailand would be, as much as this doesn't feel right to say, the smartest thing they could do. Because they both committed to pretending they're in this relationship, right? And yes, she says they're already married. She says she's already got a residency. You all know my views on that. But if they got married in Thailand, they could just use that marriage because it's a legal marriage then, and they could use that to process a sponsorship visa for Chantal, and that would be the smarter way to do this, to be in line with the Kuwaiti laws. Now, we don't have proof that this is happening either way at the moment, but there is just a little voice born of learned experience saying that, this seems a little sus. The way she's presenting this seems a little sus. There is a Kuwait embassy in Bangkok, and there is also a Canadian one if anything was needed there. I'm not sure of the range of services they offer, and I'm not saying this is happening. I'm saying basically if they've been covering up a lie for the last year and this is their only opportunity to kind of legitimize that lie, that were I stupid enough to put myself in Foodie's situation, this is how I'd fix it. I certainly don't trust Chantal to tell me the truth, hence the speculation. She says she wanted to travel and make content, says she didn't expect a ton of views, so she hasn't made a ton of views then, but is liking it, which, you went on holiday, enjoy your holiday. And like I said, she's done a lot more than I expected her to be able to. And she has always said that she's interested in travel, even if she didn't really do it. So I'm like, yeah, go do the thing. You're there, you made it, go do the thing. The next destination, they don't have any ideas in terms of they haven't picked anything and don't really have a dream place, but mentions that Japan would be cool. I lived in Japan for 3 years. I liked it there. She confirms they have McDonald's on the way and does use the phrase here in Bangkok, so she's not hiding the fact that she's actually there, but I wasn't sure with the title if she had just put it because it was a recognizable word for the, not filter, or was it for the algorithm, rather than putting somewhere else, because you know how she's put Thailand in everything. But apparently they are actually back. She misses being in the same time zone as her visa. She says the only thing she doesn't like about travel is the fact that the halal food is like triple the price there. And I'm surprised there aren't more options at a range of budgets, because Thailand is such a large tourist destination, I've never looked, there was no need for me to, so she could be completely right. But I feel like there would be some cheaper options. I think somebody asked about the laundry for some reason, and she says they pay the laundry service sometimes because they have to, but she's been washing her underwear in the sink. I don't know why she wouldn't just send it out. I don't know, maybe she's too embarrassed. Maybe they've got rules about sending your delicates. I wouldn't think so in Thailand, but I know here in Oman, I'm not allowed to send my delicates to the laundry department. So what do I know? Could be in Thailand, but I'm surprised she go to the trouble of washing it by hand. Like, there are tons of backpackers in Thailand. You can get laundromats, like just go in and do a load. I'm guessing it's something to do with embarrassment. She doesn't want them out there, which fair. I don't want to show people my undies, but it seems easier than washing them in the sink and frankly more reliable. I don't think I trust her to clean well. So here she confirms that they've been to a few hotels, which makes sense because it was Bangkok, Pattaya, now Bangkok again. So this would be their third one. And they've been planning for about a month of travel. Now, she says she can say that and just not confirm the return date, so that's fine. Excuse me, because who the hell am I? But I don't believe she would have planned for a whole month trip. Just because I don't think even Chantal would have believed that she was capable of doing an entire month. I think she's even surprised herself with how much she's done. Now, Thailand is affordable enough. You can definitely do longer trips on a reasonable budget. But I would be really interested to see if they switch to another hotel in their time, because this would be their third. And if they've been planning to just do Bangkok and Pattaya, which seems to have been it, or vice versa, Pattaya and then Bangkok, whatever, she'd already told us she doesn't like internal travel. So why would you not just split the trip in half? Or if you're going to do a week, get to Bangkok, spend a night, go to Pattaya, spend the rest of the time in Bangkok. Back and forth doesn't really seem to make sense. Now, you can do whatever you want. It's not my trip, it's their trip. They might just want to do it. They might not have thought about it. There's many reasons it could be nothing, but it could also be something, which is again when I talk about why do we speculate, because it doesn't really make sense. If she says she doesn't like to travel internally, why they'd be going back and forth so much. There's no benefit to moving around. So I don't know if perhaps they had planned to do Bangkok, then Pattaya, and then leave, and maybe their paperwork is taking a bit longer than they thought, so they're extending their trip And so the reason she was like, oh, we couldn't possibly extend our trip, it would be so complicated, was because they had. And so it's just a red herring, you know? And that's what I mean by when she says these things that are unnecessary that just end up being tells. I've got no proof. I've got no proof that this is what they're doing. Do not go out there and be like, Milk Tea said they were doing it. I'm not a reliable source here, all right? I'm just saying it seems weird. Her official reasons are she wanted to travel with Salah and she wants to create content for the channel. So there we go. Somebody asked why they don't just kiss or hug on camera. The Marty stuff has kind of died down. I know he tried to do a thing by saying, I've called the Kuwaiti authorities. I think he actually did at some point. We spoke about it the other day. But Chantal, as ever, needs to learn just to not answer the comments. There's no need. She's already said what she's already said. She doesn't need to address it. It just keeps it alive. The food arrived. She's got cheese sticks and a cheese sauce again. I find the combination weird. I know cheese and cheese shouldn't bother me, but why do you need both? I have no answer. When she gets home, she wants to incorporate a routine that she can actually do, like cooking. And I told you, I thought a health arc was coming. And I know it's really funny to talk about this because every time she's mentioned anything that makes me think that she's been eating fast food, but that's foodie for you. She said she doesn't want to fall off with the exercise and wants to do cooking videos again. I'm here for it. Do it. I want to see it. But I had a feeling. She said she'd like to visit South Korea. There were some jokes earlier about North Korea. And man, I tell you now, if she thinks she was shamed by the Thai lady, just wait till you get to South Korea. True story. When I was in Japan and I finished Japan, I wanted to apply to go and do a very similar program to what I was doing in Korea, because it was a government-sponsored program. It's what got me into teaching, and it was literally a sideways move. It was exactly the same thing, but it was in a different country. I was a little bored. I wanted to try somewhere new. I thought I'd apply. Now, with the rules of how it went in Korea, sorry, that was a bit squeaky. With the rules of how it went in Korea, I couldn't apply directly for the program. I had to go through an agent, and the agent sent me the application form. And on the application form, you had to put your weight. And at the time, I was 238, yeah? So not the highest I've ever been, certainly not the lowest I've ever been, but that was what I was. Bear in mind, I'd been doing the job I was applying for, just in a different country, and the agent came back to me and said, you are too big, they will not accept it, we will not put it forward. Now, since later, I talked to a few people on the program and they were like, no, just your agent was terrible. Like they definitely do accept people, but that's the level of, they're just like, no, break your brain, you cannot function. Even if you're currently doing the job, like you cannot function at that size. But that's the level she's gonna deal with in South Korea. Like they no bones about it. And when I tell you, she would get comments. When I tell you, she would get stares. When I tell you, people would be shocked. If you think Thailand was anything, wait until she steps foot in South Korea. I will pay to see it. I will unblock your ads for that. Someone tries to troll her with BK closing down in the Middle East. I did actually do a quick Google. And it does seem to be a troll. Some US locations are closing, but nothing in the Middle East. They start talking about halal meat, and the conversation kind of goes around there and it being better quality, and then her talking kind of about humanely reared meat, I suppose, and that leads into someone asking her a question about why she stopped being vegan. Now, the real answer to this is she didn't actually start. She said she started, she faked being vegan, and then said, no, it was too hard. And that's what she said to this person. She was like, oh, it was just so hard, like she couldn't do it. She does a taste test of a salmon teriyaki onigiri from 7-Eleven, which she calls an onigiri, which I've never heard that pronunciation before. The taste is kind of acquired for her. It took her some time, which is fair. I didn't actually like Japanese food until I moved to Japan, and now I kind of miss really good quality Japanese food. But it took a while for me to get into kind of the raw fish, the seaweed, that kind of thing. I was never a sushi eater before I got there. To be honest, there isn't very much going on with the conversation after this in the latter part of the live. She says that she saw the documentary video. Somebody linked it. I think it was Shenanigans on Twitter. Somebody has made. My phone has just told me I've reached the limit for that file size. If there's a jump, sorry, there might not be. I can't remember where I was though. So I think it was Shenanigans that posted on Twitter a link to, there's been a new kind of summary of Chantal by some documentary channel. I can't remember who it was, but they appear to be quite a large channel, which is why it was worthy of note. She says that exposure is good, which is a little bit different from when she was rolling her eyes about people making comments on the Heaven's Gate stuff. And people should come and make up their own minds about her, because a lot of people are sheep. While I understand the point she's making of people not looking into the truth of situations when they see kind of headlines online, she deletes a lot of videos for someone so confident about the truth speaking for itself. Now that's really the end of the talking points I have for this video, and I don't know if it was my video or if it was her video, but it was buffering every few seconds. If anyone had a problem with that, please let me know, because I thought it was my internet going out, but now I don't think it was. So anyway, I left it there. Okay, and that's everything I have for you today. I will go and watch the pre-recorded after I've edited and got this up. If it's worth a react, I may film it tonight and put it up tomorrow, but you probably won't see it on video until at least tomorrow. Oh, and the call to prayers just started, so perfect time to finish. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.